Welcome to episode 128 of the Business Development Podcast. And on today's episode, we are exploring another ecosystem. This time, it's Ontario's Sandbox Centre with Jesse Kerr. Stay with us. This is a really fun episode.
The great Mark Cuban once said, "Business happens over years and years. Value is measured in the total upside of a business relationship, not by how much you squeezed out in any one deal." And we couldn't agree more. This is the Business Development Podcast, based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and broadcasting to the world. You'll get expert business development advice, tips, and experiences, and you'll hear interviews with business owners, CEOs, and business development reps. You'll get actionable advice on how to grow business. Brought to you by Capital Business Development, capitalbd.ca. Let's do it. Welcome to the Business Development Podcast. And now your expert host, Kelly Kennedy.
Welcome to episode 128 of the Business Development Podcast. We have an absolutely amazing expert guest for you today. I would love to introduce to you Jesse Kerr, a dynamic communicator whose magnetic personality and animated presence have earned him the endearing moniker of the show pony. With a career rooted in relationship management and strategic focus on value creation, implementation, and partnership activation, Jesse is a force to be reckoned with, both in person and on camera. His high ID personality, as indicated by the Wiley Disc assessments, underscores his ability to lead with charm while providing unwavering support along the way. Currently, Jesse is deeply involved in the Central Ontario regional ecosystem, serving as the head camper at the Reignite conference and taking the helm as the lead facilitator for Recon, the regional ecosystem for collaborative Ontario. Additionally, Jesse plays a pivotal role at the Sandbox Centre, situated at the heart of Barrie, Ontario, where he leverages his experience to foster innovation and collaboration. With a knack for leaving no stone unturned, Jesse is committed to uncovering opportunities and forging connections that drive growth and success within the community. Get ready to experience Jesse Kerr, a true connector and a catalyst for change, ready to make waves and ignite inspiration wherever he goes. Jesse, it's an honor to have you.
Kelly, excuse me, Kelly, I got to say, I think just listening to that introduction, I might be too busy to do this right now. I got to run. Thanks for having me here. Wow. When you frame it up like that.
No pressure.
I mean, I hope we can get through all of that here today. And I do want to thank you. It's been fantastic getting to work with you and getting to know you. And I know we finished on that note there with a bit about kind of being a connector. And I really have to say the same rings true for you. Through our conversations and through connections you've made, you've really helped me from my seat here in Barrie, Ontario, connect into, the Alberta ecosystem as well. And so just a quick plug to you on that one.
Oh, dude, I appreciate it. I've absolutely enjoyed every conversation we've had, and we've had multiple at this point. We actually connected back in July of 2023. We got introduced through Aaron Haberman, who's a mutual kind of friend of both of us. He's been a longtime listener of the show and a good friend of you. And so I've really appreciated that. So I just want to give a little shout out to Aaron. I know he listens, and I really appreciated this connection, Aaron.
The Habermeister, well done, sir. See you soon.
So Jesse, you are a pivotal member in the Ontario ecosystem with regards to any type of entrepreneurship, startups, things along those lines. And it's absolutely right. Your energy is amazing. I absolutely love every time that we chat. I love who you are as a person. And I just really look forward in this interview today to getting to know you and better introducing the Sandbox Centre and, the various things that are available to entrepreneurs in the Ontario ecosystem.
Hey, Kelly, we'll definitely get into that. I totally agree that, I just want to preface this one for anybody in the ecosystem that is listening. Certainly, I have been now, I'm just coming up on about 6 years within the ecosystem, and we can touch a little bit more on that because I'll definitely take you back to how did we get here? But really what I found was it's such a vast and really expansive business services and business support entity here that we have in Ontario, and as I mentioned, clearly in Alberta as well, that I definitely am looking to continue to grow my presence. And I think that here in Central Ontario, definitely in Barrie and Simcoe County and Muskoka regions, it's been great really being able to connect with everybody and grow that presence that I have. So if there are any connections I can make to anybody who may be listening as we go through this and you hear something that makes sense, by all means, I know we'll have the connect with me at the end, but just keep that in mind as we kind of go through this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Jesse, I'm going to take you back to the beginning, my friend. How did you end up on this journey? Take me back to being a kid. Who is Jesse Kerr? How did you end up the man you are today?
Fair. Kelly, I'll tell you, I can see my mother in my mind right now, actually. And there's for sure, I'm a great blend of both my parents. And they were both fairly animated communicators. And so from a young age, I've always been an animated communicator. I think that might be one way I would put that. No shortage of ideas or opinions. And I think that I was on many different teams as in my youth. I played a lot of soccer and a lot of hockey, and was fortunate enough to experience a fairly robust childhood with a lot of different friends and a lot of different sports. And this was back in the day where we used to ride our bike across town and go out to a field, and we were always outdoors and always I was quite social. And through all of that, and throughout this story I'll tell you here, it's really been the accumulation of all of the people that I've experienced. And I like to think that there's just a little bit of every one of them in me, in who I am and who I've become. So as I go through this, also keep that one in mind. It's kind of like what was that movie? Is it The Talented Mr. Ripley? I think that might have been the name of the movie, where he just kind of picked out pieces of individuals that he saw to be successful and he saw to work and really resonated with. And I think that's kind of how I've developed myself, along with, good parenting and good mentorship throughout. But I was really, honestly, Kelly, provided an opportunity to express myself by some of my early managers, working in my retail days. I also had a lot of great coworkers to learn and grow from through my late teens and my early 20s. And got to put a shout out in here to my former team members from the now defunct White Rose brand. It was this, I don't know if White Rose was, I don't think it was a national organization, but definitely in Ontario, White Rose was kind of a blend between a garden greenhouse and like a craft store all in one. They were quite popular through here. And so shout out to everyone there. And that was really where I kind of was able to take those childhood animated communications and they started to help me kind of, you need to hone this one down for the general public. Right? We gotta put this into a business facing here. We can't just be all over the map, although there, as you'll hear, that still exists. And I think that is definitely core to who I am. But it was in that kind of time frame, really in my late teens, early 20s, kind of finished, the awkward high school and the teenage years. And as I look back on those, I mean, they were definitely influential. And this is where I started to develop the confidence to be able to share my ideas. So there was a lot of great management and a lot of people who really helped to kind of focus me in. And I found myself often near the front of a lot of conversations, if not leading them. Eventually, I wanted to see things done in a certain way, right? And for me, that meant taking the lead. So I started planning various social events and fundraisers, whether it was, the group of friends, New Year's party, where I always like to incorporate as many people as I can into everything I do, because I believe in the experience, that I see as being really a positive one for everybody. And the more people who are involved, the better that will be. Yeah. So I really started in the planning and that really kind of create more social interaction and opportunity just for people to be able to connect. And I actually, in my early 20s, I somewhat fell backwards into working for a major American corporation. I was actually working in-house at the time. I just finished up kind of my schooling in Toronto, and I went to school for, one of my passions at that time, which was music, even though I play zero instruments. And I failed the ability to, read music in my college classes, but I did pass that with some focused work. And I eventually had an audio engineering and record production certificate, or I don't even know if it would qualify as a degree from a vocational college, but there I was. And what that meant, Kelly, in 2001 was I made some really great ringtones.
Well, in 2001, that was awesome.
Right? It was totally awesome. I was, and of course, I like to share that skill with everybody. I mean, I remember my Samsung Razr back then, and you could, back when you could text someone and see what they were listening to as you texted them. Yeah. So I finished doing that. I picked up a gig while I was down there. It wasn't in what I wanted to be doing. And so I kind of retreated back to my hometown of Newmarket, Ontario. And a good friend of mine who played a fairly pivotal role in my growth and development as well. He said, hey, well, why don't we move out together, around town? And I work at this place, and you can come get a job there too. We're working the graveyard shift together. But what a life we lived, right? We weren't living at home, just two guys out with a place to be anytime, doing whatever they wanted to do, getting paid. Life was good. And then one day, it was early in the morning, and a couple of my buddies from high school walked through the door, and they said, you work here? And I said, you guys work here? They said, why don't you come work with us in the front end of the building instead of in the back end of the building? And so I ended up taking a role as a sales and service representative running a route. I would pile into my big truck every morning, and I'd go out to see my customer base. And when I first started, that could be anywhere from 200 to 250 people a week I was going out to deal with.
Wow.
And this really is where who I am now started to really take form. So this particular organization has an excellent and a renowned sales training program. And I was with them for 10 years, operating in various front-facing roles where there was a very clearly defined set of KPIs with lucrative bonus structures. And I was first introduced to the concept of an NPS score and an NPS rating. And those targets were very clear too. So for me, at that time, I was really just vaulted into this. They had a seat that they needed filled. And so I was the cold body that went in that warm seat, basically threw me to the wolves, gave me 1 week of, okay, here's where you need to go. Here's what you need to do. Away you go. Right?
Yeah, that was the way they did it back then, though. Just trial by fire.
Full trial by fire. Right. And so, I mean, honestly, this is where I really cut my teeth, right? I was failing, and I failed daily, sometimes dozens of times a day, hundreds of times a week in the beginning years where I was not being successful in my endeavors, right? I would be out in the field, and I'm just going to say it, I was getting owned by my customers, to the point that like my book of business was running me. I was not running the book of business. Yeah. And it really took a few years of training and mentorship. Not only from my managers, but again, more so from my peers, my brothers and sisters in arms. We had a great culture of sharing and support with a healthy dose of competition to have something to aspire to. And this is how, I was really learning through that trial by fire. So, I mean, I've never been one to chase a carrot. In fact, Kelly, I hate the carrot. I'd happily take the stick before I bend the knee to the carrot, so I don't know if it's foolishness. I don't know if it's pride. It's somewhere ingrained in me. I still have it to a degree this day. I can mute it a little bit more now that I have a different skill set in order to manage that kind of piece. But through a fairly natural cycle of resentment, complacency, and maybe even a little bit of fatigue from being owned day in and day out, the switch flipped for me one day. And I started to take things a little more seriously, and I began to hone those sales craft that I saw others succeed with, right? And I did that really from the help of a lot of the veterans from inside our organization. They saw that I was taking things more seriously, so their support for me would grow. My management team then started to see, that I was taking things more seriously through several conversations, and they provided me greater opportunity, where I was able to actually ascend through the ranks and carve out a great living, where I was finally running the business over and above target.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a very dialed organization that I'm ingrained in there as well, right? Where, we have year over year growth in sales targets, and they were ratcheting up. And it was a fairly cutthroat industry. I have to say, I mean, there are certain realities versus the expectation. There are fiscal limitations, for what it is that can be achieved. And as an example, I'll give you, Kelly, we had KPIs and, in year, I'll call it, let's start in year 2, right? Those KPIs may have been something like your retention for your business is 90%.
Wow.
Guess what year 3's was?
95.
91. 92. 93. There's a runway here, right?
Yeah.
There's a runway.
Yeah.
So I mean, things started becoming a little, from my perspective anyway, unattainable. And there were a couple of negative impacts on earning potential that started to pop up and, the mental well-being of trying to manage this. So, I started to look around at what else I might do, what might be next, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what I do love, and I will always look back fondly on and speak highly of, and I'll talk a little bit more about this too as we carry on here, is we developed through that training and through that trial by fire and through that camaraderie and that peer sharing and peer learning, a very measurable set of transferable skills for any front-facing role.
Absolutely.
Right. I found an opportunity then that would allow me to kind of slow down that, hectic pace, and also provided an ability to, earn escalating income in an industry that wasn't so cannibalistic, with a lot of cool fringe benefits that I thought at the time I really liked, like, tickets to hockey games, and, you could afford a nicer car.
Yeah.
Fun things like
all
that.
All the important things in life.
Right. Especially I was right around 30 or so at this point in time. And so these things seemed cool and important to me. And so, I'll tell you a really quick story about that.
You know what, Jesse, I want to hear it. But I also want to pause you just for a second, because you touched on something that I think is super critical that we've had, probably like 55, 60 interviews at this point. I have not had one person yet talk about unrealistic KPIs and what that does to an employee. And I absolutely am thrilled that you went there, because I think it's absolutely critical. There is nothing more demoralizing than giving your employee an unrealistic KPI set and then just expecting him to somehow pull it out of his hat.
You may have heard there that the one of the roles I didn't take from that whole carrot and stick scenario was ever as the sales manager or the manager role. I've never really wanted to be the manager, because those are the people who get to enforce the unrealistic KPIs. And I fully appreciate that there's someone higher up the chain going, squeeze that dime a little bit tighter, and there are realities that need to be there, and there are only so much potential earning that one can achieve. And so when from my lens of not being the sales manager and never having to have dealt with that intentionally, I just think that it isn't a healthy culture. And I have a lot of feelings on what that could look like or should look like. And it's no longer about attainable for me. And I think it needs to become sustainable work. Yes. Sustainable.
Yes. I hope that is something that changes moving forward, especially with organizations like the one that you're speaking about. It's ultimately, we worked in a time, me and you both grew up in that time. I was doing sales in that time too. And so I totally remember what it was like. It was just like, aim higher, do better. You could have had an amazing month, but then the carrot moves, right? And suddenly you're chasing something completely different, and it just never ended. And I hope that one of the takeaways that we learn from this time in business is that if you just set realistic goals and have somebody who hits those goals consistently and sustainably, that is always going to be better for everybody involved over the long term, including your employee who is no longer demotivated and going to quit or get stressed out or have to take a sick leave because they just can't keep up with that stress.
Kelly, you are entirely right. And we could probably do a whole separate podcast on the opportunities in which to change that framework.
Absolutely. It's so funny. I honestly can't believe that's never come up, Jesse, but that has never came up, not in any of my interviews so far. But I think that has been a systemic problem in the sales world for a very, very long time. And what we need to do better as managers, as people managing projects and people's, frankly, KPIs and performance, is to set them realistic goals, hold them accountable, absolutely, to the realistic goals. But, have a good understanding yourself about what is realistic before you set those goals. Know what it actually takes before you ask somebody to do that work. I think that's really what it came down to is they had no idea what it took. They just set the KPI and said, we're aiming for this. It's going to take these people doing this much work to make it happen without ever actually seeing if that was a realistic ask.
Kelly, I'll have another anecdote for you around that one too. There's the opposite frightening side of that equation that exists as well. But I am with you, and there are a number of ways. I mean, this particular organization, their solution, of course, was change the comp plan, which everyone on here who has been through that knows that's what always was coming. Once you get to the unrealistic goal, let's just restructure that and start back again at 90.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have paused you, Jesse. You touched on something that I absolutely wanted to go back on. So I apologize for stopping you. Please do continue with your story. I'm sorry that I paused you, but I think it's critical. I think it's something that's so funny that just hasn't come up yet.
Not in the least, Kelly. I mean, it's, I have a squirrel mindset at times, so I appreciate you picking out on that one. And I totally agree. And so I'll get to that one in a sec, but this was a very pivotal moment for me as well, actually. So as I'm looking around, I'm going, I got these great transferable skills. I can stand and take fire from anybody at this point in time because I know how to manage, I know how to deal. I can overcome anything you want to bring to me, and I can create value for you and show you value in those moments. I'm going out on the market. So I find this place through a friend of mine, actually. He mentioned that there was some opportunity coming up in his organization. Yep. And so I went, that's great. Can you, give me an introduction? And he did. I get the interview, right? This is back around maybe 2015 or so, 2014. When you used to actually go in and then they'd sit you down at the desktop computer and you'd knock out your aptitude test or whatever their personality test was. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Right. So, as the kind lady said, she said, you don't have to speed through. We don't expect anyone to finish it. And I'm going like heck, I'm going to nail this, right? I think I broke their timing record, Kelly. I nailed the character analysis. You learn to see through the questions and learn how to answer it. So you're like, yes, I am the exact person you were looking for based on this test that you just did. Right? You learn them. Yeah. They weren't as complex as they are today.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. I remember sitting down for a really similar interview, but it was in person, and they started busting out memory tests and all this other stuff. And I was like, how is this relevant to the job?
Someone came in and sold them that package that said, this is how you hire. Yeah. And this is a whole other podcast about, hiring. And I mean, that's not an easy task either. So I appreciate that someone somewhere was like, look, here's at least a litmus test of something versus no benchmark, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get into tier 1 hiring manager, or tier 1 hiring manager loves me. I get to tier 2 hiring manager. I'm on a roll. Then I get through, the panel, the tier 3 manager, plus the first 2 managers. They're all loving it. The president's in the house. They get me into the president. The president brings in the guy who brought me in. We're sitting in the boardroom on the top floor. He has some conversation with me, gives me the golden handshake, and he says, you know what? I think you're the right fit for us. This is going to be great. We're going to put an offer in your hands. I'm just going on vacation right now back home to India for 2 weeks. When I come back, we'll get the offer in your hand. Well, amazing. Yeah. I can't believe it. I'm upwardly mobile. I've just now ascended to the next echelon of my pay tier. I'm going to have tickets to hockey games, going to get a new car. I'm going back to my old job and I'm putting in my 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I did. Went in and they went, are you sure? What's your next job? And I said, well, this is where I'm going to go. This is why I'm going, right? They're a very formal organization. We had an exit interview that actually occurred and everything. And so I rode my 2 weeks out. Final day was up. It was March the 27th, as I recall, because I didn't get my next position that I had to scramble for until I think September. because the president who gave me the golden handshake passed away on the vacation.
Oh my gosh.
1 week goes by, 2 weeks go by. I'm tapping my buddy. Hey, do you know what? 3 weeks go by, and in the fourth week, he says, the president died. All hiring is on hold. They really want to bring you on. We don't know the timing. So I'm going, okay, guess I'll bide my time.
Wow.
It never, ever came to be, Kelly. And so that put me right back into the job market. I've got a young family at this time. What am I going to do? So, of course, I'm going to defer back to my sales skills and go take a rep job working in sales.
Yeah.
And so the plan was derailed, sir.
Mike.
Out of a job. I could have gone back. They would have taken me back too. And they said, you can come back.
It was your pride. You're like, no, I can't do this.
Well, there was that combination of that.
Yeah.
And also, I knew going forward was the only way.
Mm-hmm.
There was a reason why I was looking, right? And so to go back would have been minorly soul crushing. And I'll use the example all the time to people when I kind of recall this period in my life where I say, I got so tired of coming back every day and signing off on some other form or, some other policy that essentially said, we recognize, because this organization, their mantra was all about, creating shareholder value. And I don't remember the rest of the value statement anymore, thankfully, but shareholder value is number one. Yeah. And that meant if you could take 4 less steps, 5 more breaths, and blink twice more, we could squeeze 1/57th of a penny per day. Do you know what that looks like over a year? Sign here.
Yeah.
And I go, right? But Kelly, this brings me to that, as you said, like what was actually more frightening to me was I had a brief stint working for a mom and pop shop. How little they knew about what was happening in their own business. Mm-hmm. They had no visibility into so many factors affecting their profitability, their growth potential, and even the sustainability or viability of the business they were in that I was an employee of. I'm going, wow, now I understand why this massive corporation has all of these processes, optimizations, and training. Like, they really have it nailed. And they are one of the most cash-rich organizations in the United States to today. Yeah. And so, it was great for me personally to see the disparity between this one juggernaut that I grew to despise because of, their ability to squeeze a dime and understand profitability. And then the mom and pop shop who really had no clue. And I was wondering, are you going to survive? Mm-hmm. So, at this point, I had to take that job. It was a sales role. Knocking on, going door to door. Hey, do you have $20,000 you'd like to spend on a point of sale system? No? Okay. Hey, you mom and pop restaurant, do you have $45,000 you'd like to spend on this system? And this was at the precipice of the cloud systems that had come out too. So here I am knocking on doors, trying to sell hardware to somebody while software and apps are taking over the market, right? So fortunately, I was able to find a new way forward there and ended up working for an American startup, which is where kind of the consultancy side of the equation started to begin. But what I also recognized at that time was I didn't want to be siloed solely in kind of the biz dev or the sales. I started to branch out, probably to the detriment of my career, into other facets of what the organization offered. From my biz dev sales role, I really branched more into the customer service side of the equation because, again, I wanted things done a certain way, and the way I wanted them done meant this is the responsibility, right? Like if anyone's going to do it, it was going to have to be me if it's going to get done to the degree I want it to be done. So I started to take on all of these pieces. I started doing, consulting on implementation, on the IT, so I could be better. I got into technical sales, and then it was into the operations of how can we improve the technical sale and the customer experience and the journey mapping and all these different parts. Yeah. And then that company got sold to a bigger company, and I was out of a job again.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, and in transparency, and I want to share this next bit. This is, to some people, maybe a bit more of a personal aspect. Again, now my family's a little bit older. At this point, I was really on a consultancy opportunity, which is why it was so easy to let me go as they got bought out and they downsized all of the kind of the higher end earners. And then I was sitting there again with, what is it that I want to do? Where do I want to go? Unfortunately, at that time, and the first time I moved from the large corporation and the president passed away, I actually had a profit sharing plan. So I had a couple grand, sitting behind me banked where I could afford, the lifestyle that we lived and pay the bills. Yeah. This time, as a consultant, I actually had to make a decision because I was getting paid in USD, but I also had to save a whole bunch of money for tax to pay out to our friends at the CRA. So I had, again, tens of thousands of dollars in my back pocket waiting to pay the CRA come tax time, right around the time I got fired. And so now I had to look at who's getting paid here, my bills or the government?
Hopefully the government, because it's way worse than the bills.
So I'll tell you what, the bills started to pile up too, and the government started to pile up, and eventually the government came knocking, and so did everybody else. And I got myself into a position where I could look for a consumer proposal or I was going to claim bankruptcy. And so I went and looked for a consumer proposal to make everything work out. And I've learned a whole bunch about what that actually looks like through my experience. And I really had a lot of free time, Kelly. So I dug deep to figure out what this all meant and what it looked like. And I ended up, getting rejected by the government and one of the credit card companies. And if two of the people on your proposal reject it, that means you're up the creek and your only option is either pay it all back. And the government fines, my friend, as you alluded to, they amounted to more than 50 grand on top of what it was I owed. So it was almost 100 grand, and I've only got about 20 in my pocket. So I had to make the decision to hammer the bankruptcy button.
My gosh.
And I mentioned this to you all because if anybody ever wants to know about bankruptcy or what an LIT, which is a designation here in Canada, who are supposed to help manage you through the bankruptcy process, I tell you right now, they are not your friends. Mm-hmm. They may appear to be your friends. They may be some nicer than others, but they actually get paid by how much you pay them. And so anyway, needless to say, now we're bankrupt and without a job. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. In that moment, you've been so successful, Jesse. What was that? I think that's every entrepreneur's worst nightmare. How did you pick yourself back up from this? I think most people that would, like you alluded to, it's soul crushing. Most people in this situation, I don't think that they recover, at least not the way that you have. And so I would love to learn, what was your mindset in that time? How were you able to stay motivated and look to a positive future in such a challenging moment?
Kelly, this one probably has to go back all the way to the beginning to, as I mentioned, my parents and the way that, we were raised. I did have a lot of great individual success through sport and with teams. I always scored well on, testing. I had fairly decent aptitude. And so I had a good amount of, self-belief and self-worth that things were going to work out. But I also had the foolish belief that got me into this position that, money grows on trees and I can always make more, right? We're having this degree of success. There's always more to come. And I don't know if it's through practice of what I did, divine intervention, or a combination of both, that everything right at the last minute, in the 11th hour, as the last penny was spent, the opportunity arose and it was there for me to take, and I went after it and it worked out. They weren't always shiny. Like when I mentioned that first time where I was out of work and I had to take that role knocking on doors selling, $35,000 POS systems to people who couldn't afford it. It was not a high paying job, but it was enough that it got it done on the home front. It was allowed me to sustain, and it provided future upward growth or even just a hold for this point in time, right? So I think that there's a bit of a mentality piece that needs to exist there, as you've alluded to. And I think that having successes in times where it may not be certain, whether that was back in a sports field or domain or other areas that, people will have different pressures that they need to manage. I think it really comes from the practice of that and being able to believe in yourself that you can pull through and you can achieve. And even in the last moment, I got to tell you, this story works out again for me, where I this brings us right into kind of the Sandbox Center and this crazy job description I saw that, sent all the squirrels in my head running in all directions, thinking that sounds just about perfect. But I mean, it wasn't easy. It wasn't peaceful times on the home front. We've got I'm in a blended family. We've got 3 kids, we got all the bills stacking up on the backside. I mean, I turned around to my better half too, and, was going, maybe we need to be living a little leaner than we are right now, and try telling your wife who's in her dream house that she had before you came along.
Yeah.
That this isn't the way we need to be doing things, because we need to tighten the purse strings, and she's holding up her end, and it's you that needs to make the changes. So, I mean, it isn't easy, right? It isn't easy. And I would just want to put out there to anybody who may find themselves either once, twice, repeatedly, or be staring down that right now, that it is the perseverance and it is the just keep going, right? If I was going to pull this one from Nemo, right? Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Yeah.
You just have to keep going. And I would suggest that most people who have that sales mentality and have had to have been through the unrealistic KPIs of life that get put on you, just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I would argue that you're absolutely right, actually. I think salespeople make really good entrepreneurs for that very reason. We're so used to just being like, okay, that sucked. Let's keep going. And yet that's really the mentality that you need, right? Tomorrow? Yeah, it just happens to be the mentality that you need to be successful, because it really is the stubbornness of just being like, that sucked, I'm going to keep going, though, that leads to success over time.
And with any hope at all, and this is one of the things I hope to be instilling in my own children through the resiliency piece, is that you learn from that. You don't keep committing the same mistake over again. Yeah. We take a look at, let's look inwards first. Let's not look outward to blame everything else that was happening. Look, what could I have done differently? Mm-hmm. What should I do differently? How do I position myself better for the next time, until you run into the next series of roadblocks that you just didn't see coming? Because not everybody can see everything all the time. Sure. Which we'll touch on later too.
Yeah. No, you nailed it, right? It's like the only person who you can change in the world is you, right? You can't influence, like, sure, I guess maybe you can influence outside stuff, but if something's going to happen to you that's an external thing, there's not a lot that you can do about that action or that person. But there's a lot about what you can do internally with yourself, about how you respond to that situation, the choices that you make. The only person you ever control is you. So you really need to look inwards and ask yourself, what can I do, as opposed to, letting other people control you.
If that is the only thing anybody hears us talk about today, I would say that would make it feel successful to me. That is exactly it. And then there's the process of getting better at being able to do that, being honest with yourself about, who you are, what you're doing. I don't enjoy people who seek to blame others. There are always going to be factors that you may not have control over. But at the end of all of this, it's all about how you acted in that moment, or you reacted in that moment, or how you planned to be in that moment, how you showed up in that moment, all the different things you can do in that moment. And then also, please remember that it's just a moment, right? You may find yourself in a terrible spot. You're out of work. Your wife's angry. You got some kids you need to feed. In that moment, it's not the defining portion about your whole life, which is why I always tell the story of the bankruptcy piece to, anyone that it makes sense for, and even in the recap of who I am and where I've been, because it happened, right? I failed to avoid that outcome through all of the previous steps that I had taken, or I didn't plan properly, and that was me. It wasn't somebody else that put this on me. I mean, obviously, things happen outside of my control, and then there's the government. That's 10 other episodes. We'll skip that one for today.
But it led you down this amazing journey to the Sandbox Center and the man you are today. And let's get into it. What is the Sandbox Center? How did you end up here?
So there I was, unemployed, bankrupt, just hit the bankruptcy button. And I'll spare the rest of that part of that story because there's a little intricacy in there that comes into play. But it was June of 2019. 2018. It was June of 2018. And I'm looking around, and now I've got opportunity to kind of change what I want to do next. I didn't want to go back into a sales and biz dev role. I had spent a bunch of time kind of cross-training myself within some of my other roles. That sound that you just heard there is the only time my phone makes noise, and that was my wife. She's probably going to be there. Stop telling the bankruptcy story.
I have not heard Sega, and I can't even tell you how long. That brings back memories.
I'm so glad that
I'm literally leaving that in just to make people's day who haven't heard that in forever.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you picked that up. That's my ringtone. Hey, right? That ringtone put me out of business.
Oh, no.
Back in the day, right? So I'm looking around, what can I do? And I'm at this point in time in my cross-training of myself, I thought, I'd really actually like to maybe get more of the marketing side of the equation. Let's get a little bit more marketing experience. And so I see this job ad on one of the boards, and it doesn't say what it is, what the company is, what it's for, but I'm able to put some of the pieces of the puzzle together from some clippings that I maybe picked up on LinkedIn and on some local publications over the time to think, I think this is that Sandbox Center thing, which I didn't entirely understand, which is also fair, because what is the Sandbox Center? Man, that was the question still to today for many people, but for everybody, for at least the first 3 or 4 years we've been in business. And as of, I guess, April of this year, the doors opened here, April of 2019. I started Labor Day 2018 through this. There's this great hiring story too, but we can touch on that one another time. But what the Sandbox Center is, and it's been said that we do a lot of things, and you're going to get a roundabout answer here, but I will sum it up at the end. And so, because it's been said we do so many things, and through that, it's often been really unclear what we do. As a startup ourselves, we had a founding board, we had a founder. They worked within the immediate business community in the city of Barrie, because we're here in Barrie, Ontario. They got a vision for this organization, and this organization is going to act like the front door to the regional business ecosystem. We're going to have the ability to triage entrepreneurs and startups themselves to the service providers and the different resources that they need and they may not know exist, right? We got a 10,000 square foot space that I'm sitting in right now. It was meant to spark face-to-face random collisions between businesses at any stage, across any industry, all here together, same place, same time, and they're going to share knowledge. We're going to break down barriers by providing this place that created access to the different individuals that could help you grow and accelerate your business. And it's all under one roof, right? And so it really just wasn't clear to anybody exactly what that meant, though.
Sure.
Right. There are other organizations that kind of do some of these things.
I don't want you to feel bad about that, though, because I think a lot of these entrepreneurial accelerator or support companies, and they do struggle to really clarify what it is. A big part of my journey here at the Business Development Podcast has been to shine a big light and get clear on what it is they do so that other people in the ecosystem, other businesses can actually understand them. Because I think if more businesses really understood what they did, they could truly reap the benefits. And it's just the fact that they don't know what they do. And so a big part of what we have done has been to shine a light on Alberta Innovates and Edmonton Unlimited and, the Business Development Bank of Canada. And right. And now, now the Sandbox Center, right? We're trying to get an idea of how these businesses actually work, who they support. And so I think that's why these things are really beneficial.
Kelly, and so I agree with you. And if we have time near the end, I'll touch on something that one of my other things that I like to do. So the Sandbox Center is my full-time realm at this point. I mean, we've had several iterations of what that means here over our almost 6 years in existence now, or 5 and change. And keep in mind, right? We didn't even finish our first year with the doors open. We opened April the 19th, I think, 2019. Yeah. And then, March 2020, the world kind of shuts down. And it was actually a bit of a blessing for us. We had about 10,000 people come through the Sandbox in those opening 11 months for the various events and workshops, right? Keeping in mind, it's a 10,000 square foot, very open space. There's programming, social gatherings. Yeah. it was really hard to work on the business because we were so caught up in the weeds of working in the business. And the pandemic, for whatever it is or isn't to anybody, it allowed us to slow way down, reflect, and like redefine our offering, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that time, I mean, due to the strength of the team we had, and the team has changed in different iterations. I am currently as old as the furniture here, and the oldest remaining member of the original team, and the oldest member of the team, as a matter of fact. But with the team we had, we were actually excellent, and we pivoted to the online Zoom world and became a go-to distributor of information and content. We ended up partnering with a couple of national organizations to deliver some of their programming across Canada, right from here out of the sandbox. And we got really polished at that, right? So the other thing that happened too, though, on the backside of all that was because we have this great big space, it allowed for all kind of comfort levels to reemerge from their houses back into the face-to-face public domain as the mania wound down. But during the pandemic, the sandbox got to pause. What is it that we like, the crazy race that we just ran where, it's brand new out of the gate. Our founder did an unbelievable job of getting 3-year commitments from all of our sponsors and the partners. Many of, he has multiple businesses that he runs in and around here. A couple of them are international. And he spent a lot of time investing in other local founders and people that he's worked with as it's still invested in those businesses. Yeah. But like, what do we mean to them and what difference can we actually make in their life, right? We still have this ability now today. One of the functions we do have is that ability to pull people together. And I'm staring as I look out to my right here. I see 2 people who've only met each other maybe a week and a half ago that now have been in this 45-minute conversation. One of the guys has helped 2 companies exit, and he's now a VC through all the money he's got. The other is in one of the programs that's run out of here by one of our partners at Georgian College. And they've just been going on about who knows what for the past 45 minutes, right? But we have that ability. So that happens here. That check mark, we got that. The ability to triage people through the ecosystem, right? So I'll often explain to people who walk up and they, you do not expect this facility and maybe we'll be able to get a video or something associated to this so people can see when you walk in off the street down here in downtown Barrie, which isn't very big, but it's downtown Barrie. And we're on the 2nd floor of the bus terminal, the 1982 bus terminal or something, I think it is. And you walk up here into this bright open space. We have 3 fairly large boardrooms with retractable whiteboard walls. It can open up into different configurations. And it's basically a big oval with a big patio on the front of it that stares out onto beautiful Kempenfeld Bay at the big spirit catcher that came to us, I believe, from France through the McLaren Art Gallery. And it does not represent what's down on the floor here in downtown Barrie. So they come up and they're kind of going, what is this? What is this place? And one of the easiest ways I can explain it to them is we can help, who are you now? We're going to do a little triage. Who are you? What is it that you want to be doing? What's your understanding of what you want to do? What do you think you need next? Who else have you talked to? So then I can get a sense of what is a good next step for you. Mm-hmm. And I can even let you know, here are likely the next 2 steps I will personally introduce you to them. I'm not just giving you a business card or a website and say, thanks for coming, go figure it out. Yeah. Because I hold the relationships with all of these people. So we do that, right? I can triage you to the next best thing and even explain to you what it might be. So you can feel like if it's a good fit, give you the information, make the direct connection. And now you have a way forward. You walked in here going, I think I need some help. I don't know what I don't know. So we serve those people. So we're also a what you don't know store. That's kind of one of the other things we do. Then, because we still have to operate, we are a not-for-profit organization, but we still need to keep the lights on. Jesse does like getting paid. He's into that.
Yeah, kind of important, especially right? Given the story.
We like that. We need to do that. So we have a membership model here, right? Yeah. So as a not-for-profit organization, one of the things that our founder says, and we haven't found this to not be true yet, is we are one of the only, if not the only, community hub or business resource center in Canada that has 0 government funding.
Wow.
We are entirely funded through our members and our partners and our sponsors. So we need to provide value, right? So we have a membership model, and the membership model is really inexpensive too. It's essentially around $100 a month at the time of this podcast. And for that, you get access to the use of space. So it is not, and I repeat this intentionally, it is not a co-working space, but we do have drop-in space that functions very similarly, right, to that. We have the access for the members to just drop in. And so the two that I was alluding to are kind of sitting over at what I call the fourplex desks, and they're going to drop in here to do work because they prefer to be here than sitting at home by themselves. We have the boardrooms that I'm sitting in that I alluded to. And so our members have, benefit access to that, right? They've got a deep discount if they want to book space in the boardroom. But as part of their membership, they just get drop-in use of space that comes with all of the different, I like to call them activations. Some people call them workshops. Some people call them programs. I'm just going to call them activations. So we have peer circles, or a peer group as they would traditionally be known, as part of the membership. We have our social networking that we run every Thursday from 4 to 6. And so at the core of the membership, what I'm going to say to sum it up would be really what we're offering is different ways for entrepreneurs and businesses to really have a way to come together and connect and share, as is happening out there right now. Then we have our sponsors, because they're the nut of, how we keep the lights on here and what happens. So really the beauty of them is they all have intrinsic values, and there's a bunch of, names on the wall, but what we like to do with them more so is really pull out the intricate values that they offer that people aren't aware of, that are the differentiators in their business success. Right? These businesses are in business and offering this value prop because it brings value. It makes change. It's something that's needed. And so for us, what we look to do there is really create trust, right? We create this place of trust. And here at the Sandbox, Kelly, what is important is it's a no selling zone. People do not lead with business cards here. You're not coming here to get your next client. You're not coming here to drum up business. You come here to share. And through that sharing, as the old proverb says, you will receive. And so that's what we facilitate. That is the culture that we have here.
Amazing. But it ultimately does support business growth at the end of the day, but it's a different way of going about it.
Here's the sale tagline on it. I'll pull it all together. So what is the Sandbox Center today, right? We're a hub for the regional business community. We're a not-for-profit organization that creates opportunities for entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, which is actually in the official Sandbox Center name, and businesses of all sizes, stages, and industries to be better than they are today. And I mean, Sandbox is many things to many people. So summarily, what is the Sandbox Center? The Sandbox Center is a business super connector. Like Bismarcky, because I know you know this one, we got what you need.
Amazing. And let's say that we're talking to entrepreneurs in the area. What is the service area, first off? And if they're hearing this, what might be one of the reasons that you would give them? Or how about this? What might be some of the problems that a company might be experiencing that a membership with the Sandbox Center could help them fix?
Kelly, do you ever feel alone in business? Do you ever have questions that you'd like to get answers to, but when you go home at the end of the day, you don't really feel like you can get them? Maybe your circle of influence doesn't have what you need, like Bismarcky. Here at the Sandbox Center, we have like-minded individuals who are also on that same journey at that same place as you. But more so, we also have people who have come before you who are looking to help you accelerate your business by making you better than you were today. Come to the Sandbox Center where you'll connect with, right? So
when is the commercial coming out?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of programs and people who come through here, and I am on the radio. And to answer your question, what is the service area? We refer to it generally as Central Ontario. And so by that, I would say we're kind of York Region, Simcoe County, and Muskoka. The pandemic obviously offered opportunities for people to stretch beyond. But I would say that the majority of those that we see regularly are going to be in the Simcoe County area, with a helping of those kind of on the immediate borders, because a lot of what the offer is here, as you may have, heard me say several times at this point, is it's really about that face-to-face connection and that sharing opportunity, which the space was created for. But we do have virtual settings where we connect people as well. And actually part of what we're doing right now is, really, again, trying to understand, because we went from in-person to online only to hybrid to let's not ever do hybrid again to in person to what's the virtual element going to look like, right? Yeah. So we are building that out at this very moment. Hopefully trying to work with Colin Christensen. Are you listening? Yeah.
He probably is.
He's got some great solutions that, in and amongst things like he's offering with the ability to kind of virtually connect and virtually mentor and virtually impart wisdom, share knowledge, break down barriers. That's, really what we want to do, because we have a great formula for that in person. And so that is really who we're serving at this point. And then for some of the other things that I look to do as well, kind of once we get off the sandbox idea, we really look to serve there too.
Amazing. And one of your titles is one of the most interesting titles I think I've come across on this show, and that is the head camper of the Reignite conference. What is the head camper? What is that responsibility?
That is also evolving daily. I ask myself, does head camper really encompass what it is you do? And it does while we're at camp. And so the Reignite conference was born of the desire to really expand the community of practice of entrepreneurs and business people and entrepreneurs who are just looking to better themselves. And the founder, gentleman by the name of Chris Adams, who holds far more interesting titles than I do. He's been around for many more years than I have. Maybe one day, if he's listening, I aspire to be more Chris Adams every day. Although I'm sure he aspires to be more me too at times. But what he did with some of the other leaders within our community in year one was say, you know what, let's have an adult business camp. Let's go away like we did. And so we go up to this camp called Olympia Sports Camp in Huntsville. It's a very prominent kids sports camp in Ontario. They got a great layout. It's nestled between two lakes, big property, old buildings. The founder of it created in the style of Nordic king's property, I guess is the way I would put it, with all these interesting wood outbuildings. And it's a great space. And what we look to do there was bring together more knowledge and also some fun. So the founder, he is very, very passionate about music and Canadian music. So we've hosted some interesting bands there. I can't remember now, year one. It might have been Sloan. I think it might have been Sloan and somebody else. And so we've had some interesting acts. And so, Kelly, to put the Reignite conference together for what it is today and what it is for 2024, I will still use the tag of adult business camp just to kind of frame it. But when I'm out there and I'm talking about it, what we're really focused on more is putting founders and funders together. And so the main audience that we speak to in this is really kind of the incubators and accelerators who have founders that they are working with. And then what we look to do through our vast network as well is to bring in a bunch of funders, whether those are angel investors, private equity, or VCs for varying things. We put them together for essentially 48 hours over 3 days. So this year's Reignite conference is September 19th to the 21st at Olympia Sports Camp. And we're going to have 4 keynotes. We have 4 focus, what we call camps. And so really these are panel discussions. And then after the panel discussion, we have breakouts, right? And we call those pop-ups. So this year I can tell you that the Thursday kicks off with something new. And for us, that is a med tech and life sciences, maybe biotech panel discussion, along with a couple of pop-ups after that. Then we'll go into dinner, and then we'll hit a keynote. And then after the keynote, and I'm not going to let you know who those are yet, but after the keynote, we'll have a band kind of come on. And so it's this broad experience. And does that make sense then when I say like adult business camp?
Yes, very much so. It sounds very amazing, actually. Are Westerners welcome to this adult business camp?
They are, in fact, welcome to this adult business camp. And I got to tell you that it may be of key interest to someone who has the business development podcast that day 2 at Reignite. The two camps are going to be focused more on revenue generation. So I think the morning camp is more of we call it scale up, and then it's more rev gen focused. And then the second iteration is going to be more funding aspects. And so that may devolve more into, the concept of the investor side. They have the money, and everybody knows the money is super tight right now within the industry as to what they will invest in and what they won't invest in and what that needs to look like. And so just for, those individuals who are out there, seeking either their first round or their next round, or they've got a vision towards what that could look like down the road. I mean, we pull all of these people in, and they are at the camp, and you get to spend 48 hours with them. Yeah. And the other beauty of this is it's not 48 hours of, you being on. You're a you now. They're getting to know you, which is why the funders side of the equation really like this, because prior to that, they may only have a few interactions. They have to judge you by your pitch. And, for the founder, you're like, oh no, my pitch didn't go right. They didn't really hear me.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They're really going to come to know you and hear you when you spend 48 hours with them getting to know each other. Right. Absolutely. And so that is at the core. And then we have the keynotes speaking to, and I'll tell you, last year we have this great photo. It was remarkable weather. We got 26 degrees in late September all weekend. The first year we did not. We had 18 degrees. It never rained on us, but it was gray and overcast. 26 degrees. I mentioned there's 2 lakes on either side of the camp. And so we have fun. There was a band, there was a DJ. Suddenly the DJ decided he wanted to DJ down by the beach. Then people started to want to play volleyball. Some people stopped going to the pop-ups. All of a sudden there was a dock party, and the dock party started to grow. It's all inclusive, by the way, of everything you can have. So all the food and drink was there. And then all of a sudden we got Bruce Croxon as our keynote this year. Bruce is on in the hall, which is not at the beach. And I'm looking around, and I said to DJ Casey, DJ Casey, how long's that microphone cable you got there? And he said, it's about 50 feet. I paced off 50 feet, and look at that. It was right onto the beach, right in front of the dock, Kelly. So we have this great photo, and I actually have even a personal photo I love of the huge smile on Bruce's face, because I was in the water. I'm just wearing a towel, and I'm walking up to him to shake his hand at the end of it. And I fling off my towel, and it's kind of like a Roman cape in the wind behind me. And Bruce got this huge grin on his face, smiling at me. So he delivers the keynote, Kelly, from the beach in 26 degrees to our campers. There was about 140 people or so on the dock. What an experience, right? And then he stuck around all weekend too, right? You wanted to roll up to Bruce at dinner, hang out. You wanted to hang Bruce at the fire, hang out. So we're back at that again this year. And so we got scale up on day 2, and then day 3 is kind of a half, maybe a 2/3 day. And we got our AI camp that runs on that day as well, along with a whole bunch of pop-ups. So,
dude,
it's awesome. I gotta say,
that sounds like any entrepreneurs listening. If you got nothing to do, or even if you do have something to do, you should definitely check this out.
The connections that were made, in the follow-on survey and even beyond at this point. I mean, it started in year 1, it was 80 people, and it was kind of that, friends, family, and fools crowd. And largely it was made up of kind of the sandbox ecosystem. And then year 2, as we expanded the conversation, we were looking for 125, and we got to almost 140. Great partners of ours at a bunch of different accelerators. Shout out to anyone who is engaged the DMZ. We had a massive faction of the DMZ come up with us too. The burgeoning Tree Frog Accelerator in Newmarket, Ontario, actually was a big piece of it as well. We had a lot of great partners who pulled in, and then an extraordinary amount of really heartfelt offerings. All of our keynotes that showed up, they just showed up to give because they thought this is a great experience. I'm actually going to get to hang out, be me. It's no pressure, right? No one's pitching you. No one's there to sell you on a deck. I mean, some of the founders get a little eager when you get around the money, and you really want to have the combo, but it quickly divulges into just let's get to know each other. Who are you, right? And that just opens that door to maybe knock on their door again at a time when you're ready or really understand, because you're going to get to talk with them. They can spell out for you, like, this is what I'm looking for truly. Where are you now? Sounds like maybe these are some of the things that could change, or I see what you're saying. Here's some great opportunity or great connection. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you nailed it too. Like I always tell people, business isn't done at the conference, it's done after. And so what you need to do at any conference is make connections, be a human, be yourself, build a relationship, and you can always go to that business later. We get so many people that they just rush into it and they just jump right into trying to, slam a pitch down somebody's throat. And it's like, that's not the time, right? Conferences are not the time.
It is not the time. And so it's great because everybody, the culture of it is there. And I mean, it's not just for founders and funders too, right? There is the knock-on effect of just individuals who are like, they could be solopreneurs. They're not really looking to scale to a massive, international organization. It's a lifestyle business. They've carved out a path for themselves. Maybe they're looking to do a little bit better. Maybe they just want to broaden their network. So we also have a healthy number of, of exactly that, those individuals, the entrepreneurs even, who are looking, to be surrounded in a community of practice again. Because if you think about the people who are there and what they focus on in the day and like what they live and breathe, it's very infectious culture, right? So even if you're just looking to, again, reignite, right, yourself and your passion and what it is you're looking to do, you never know exactly the spark that you'll catch or that you'll give. I take such pride in it because of the experience. And so as the head camper, which is I think how we started this diatribe, my role is I lead the conversation throughout the weekend, right? So you'll hear a lot of my voice. Come the final keynote last year, which was, I don't know if it was solely because, and I explained this on stage, I was like, I feel like an overtired toddler. And you know what that's like? I am raw. I've got nothing more in the tank, but I am here for you all. And then our keynote, she went completely raw on her journey. And I'm almost going to cry now. She had me in tears. She had everyone in tears with just the pure emotion. And it really spoke to, and this is the last time I'm going to beat this horse, it really spoke to the sense of community that was there, that she went way off script and just started sharing the reality of her experience that she did scale. She was a single mom who was looking to create a healthier food option for her children in like the craft dinner style brand. And she created this thing called chickpea pasta. She almost got me there again too, choking on myself. Shelby Taylor went so raw with her experience that, you asked me earlier, what does that look like when you're down, you're knocked down, and what, how do you manage, how do you come through? Like what she has had to manage, and I'm not even going to try it because I will ruin the story. But what she had to manage, all the pressures of this growing and scaling global business, home life, personal matters, compounding on top of each other. It's just so rare. You're not going to get that glimpse from her or anybody else. Just an interaction at a conference or at an event, right? It takes something like this where you truly find a community. And that's what people kept saying is, I found my people.
Mm-hmm.
I found my people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I take such pride in the experience.
Absolutely. So find your people, get in touch with Jesse about how the heck you guys get to the Reignite conference in 2024. That sounds like a good place to be.
It'll be going to market soon. We're just having the conversations with everyone from last year and then our returning campers. And then in April, you'll start to see us come out. The early bird tickets will be on sale to save anybody any potential sticker shock. Again, it's 3 days, 4 keynotes, 4 camps. We're looking at 175 campers this year. So the experience for the ticket in the early bird is around $1,200. When you consider a stay in Muskoka itself is about $500 a night, and that's before you eat anything. You got the upgraded menu, the all-inclusive heated cabins and all that. So just to give you a sense of the regular price ticket will be about $1,500 by the time we get to August. So when you see it come out, we'd love to have you guys there. And actually, one of the other opportunities, and I'll just mention this for the people who are listening, like if you end up having a conglomerate that wants to come from Alberta, we want to have you guys there, and we recognize that there's an additional expense for the travel aspects too. So if we can help you out with that, we certainly want to have you. We want to expand. So we're always open to other opportunities. And like I mentioned, the DMZ, right? They had a great model where they kind of supported the ability for their founders to go, but still wanted them to put some skin in the game too, to make sure that, they saw the experience and they grabbed full value. So we're open to conversation, and the doors will be open for business come April. But we would really love to have everybody from Alberta show up, especially you. We may have something special for you.
Okay. Well, let's have a conversation. Jesse, this has taken us to the end of our show today. It's been absolutely amazing having you. I wanted you to take just 2 minutes here before we closed off and touch on recon.
Absolutely. So this is where what I saw through conversations that happened internally here in kind of our region was that we kept talking to each other. And we kept telling each other what it was we were going to do. And we kept trying to find ways to work together. But everybody has their own KPIs and things they need to report on. And, working together didn't always quite work. We'd love to, and we tried. So I said, why do we keep, for 2 years, we've been talking to each other and going nowhere. Why don't we start talking to other people in other ecosystems, right? And so this is the concept of RECON, the acronym being Regional Ecosystem Collaborative Ontario. And so I set up a little tour across Ontario. I started knocking on doors of some of my connections saying, hey, I'd love to bring some people from here and invite people from any of the other regions into, we went to McMaster Innovation Park last January. Jonathan Hunt and the team out there hosted us. Jonathan, what does the ecosystem in Hamilton look like? And they are extremely well established. They are a mature ecosystem. They've got great funding. They've got a university, the college, an incubator, an accelerator. Their ECDev team works well together. And so for everybody who came to visit, and this is the purpose of Recon in a nutshell, is it was really benchmarking where you are, what you have, and how it works against what exists in other ecosystems, how they have and how they're working, to see, are there new ways that either we can do what we do here better, or can we work with somebody else? What is the path forward so we can just improve our own business ecosystem? And so last year, what that looked like, Kelly, was a tour. We made, I believe, 10 stops, including one at the Reignite conference, conveniently, just before it kicked off with our friends in Muskoka. And we have that again this year as well. And conveniently, also, that day will be focused on medtech and life size. So interesting that that's what the first day of Reignite is. And so for this year, I think what the change is going to become is it's going to become a more focused, maybe more of a conference style. This year, I hope to put, we already have the one that's going to happen on September the 19th in Muskoka. I was looking to get one in a region a little bit closer to Toronto, potentially in June or July, June being the Collision conference. So maybe we go to July, or maybe it happens during Collision, who knows? But it'll be more focused on the big difference there. Who comes to the table to answer the question? The biggest change is you bring all of the business supports together. So, the academia and what I like to call agency. But the big change and the big thing that needs to happen is you need the municipal and provincial level government there, because a lot of the resources that they put in place don't always work. The boxes can't always be checked to actually create impact. And so Recon is going to be that opportunity to come together in a conference format to, again, just hear about how are other ecosystems doing it. And we had some success on this level on a smaller scale at a few of our stops, specifically the ones in Collingwood and Muskoka, where it was an opportunity for the government bodies to really hear what are the innovators doing? What do they actually need from us versus how it works and what we're doing? Because the biggest one piece to finish this out is entrepreneurs don't see municipal or provincial borders.
That's true.
Other than when we're forced into the box in order to receive any kind of support by way of granting or funding opportunities, right? So we want to try and break that down. That's going to be the core focus of Recon for 2024.
Amazing. And you know what? I'm going to make a pitch for you. The Sandbox Center is doing amazing things in Central Ontario. They are not government funded. They are not for profit. They are funded by donations, by memberships, by just people who want to support the Ontario business community. And this doesn't have to come from within Ontario. I'm talking to Canada as a whole. We have a lot of listeners across this country. If you guys, love what they're doing here and you want to get behind this organization, they need your support. So Jesse, how do they get a hold of you? How do we do this?
Kelly, I appreciate the Canada-wide call out, and sandboxcenter.com is our website. We just flipped it over, so it is under some work. But sandboxcenter.com is there. reach out to me personally. My name, Jesse, Jesse, last name Kerr, Kerr. If you type that in and with the word sandbox into LinkedIn, you'll surely find me. We're also on LinkedIn and all the socials at Sandbox Center. That's the CENTRE spelling. And you know what? We just want to have connection too. Whether or not it works out that it makes sense for you from that support lens, which we would love. If we know you, then it broadens our ability to serve the people in our region and that we come across, right? So Sandbox is a super connector. We want to know as many people as we can and understand what you do so that we can connect people into you. That's at the heart of all of it. So whether it's a one-way or a two-way street, we appreciate knowing more and more of you. And Kelly, thank you so much for giving us the forum and the opportunity, and me the forum and the opportunity today too, sir. Truly appreciate it.
Jesse, it's been an honor. This has been episode 128 of the Business Development Podcast. This has been with Jesse Kerr. He is the Senior Ecosystem Manager at the Sandbox Center, the head camper at Reignite Conference, and the lead facilitator at Recon. It's been an absolute honor. We look forward to our next conversation, Jesse, and we will catch you on the flip side.
This has been the Business Development Podcast with Kelly Kennedy. Kelly has 15 years in sales and business development experience within the Alberta oil and gas industry and founded his own business development firm in 2020. His passion and his specialization is in customer relationship generation and business development. The show is brought to you by Capital Business Development, your business development specialists. For more, we invite you to the website at www.capitalbd.ca. See you next time on the Business Development Podcast.